Welcome back to episode 5 of Beyond Reps. In this episode, we're going to be covering how not to be a gym nonce. Don't break the gym law. It's going to be a little bit of more of a fun episode where we talk about the do's and don'ts of the gym and gym etiquette, and we'll talk about some of our experiences that we've had. But first off, Charlie, how are you?
I'm all good, mate. So yeah, we've just briefly had a catch up beforehand, and 7 weeks into photo shoot prep, still got another 11 weeks to go. So I'm doing well. I'm not feeling the effects just yet, but obviously the weight's falling off me. So I give it a few weeks before I start hitting struggle city. But for now, it's plain sailing. Can't complain. Life is low stress, and yeah, we're about to jet off skiing next week. So all exciting stuff. How are you?
All good, my man. We can't jet past the fact that your face is looking outrageously lean. I mean, we had a 1 week hiatus because I had quite a bit going on in the professional world. But yeah, you're getting the skull face coming in very slowly, and I'm incredibly jealous. I'm still 2 weeks away from bulking. Yes, I am counting down every single day. We did have a little discussion off camera, and this could be the last ever bulk for me. It's got to the point now where my face is so fat that I'm just unsure if I even recognise myself. And then you come on camera, and your jaws just coming in nice and chiseled. You know that the cheekbones are starting to pop out, and I'm fully you're like mewing. What do they do? And they're like bye bye or whatever it is like on camera. And yeah, I'm just here, 95 kegs, just one hell of a whale. So yeah, very very jealous of your shredded physique, and yeah, really really looking forward to joining you soon. But yeah, we are looking obviously going skiing next week as well, so can't wait for that. Never been skiing before. We've just had one lesson each, which we did over in Birmingham. So yeah, we know pizza. We know it's go a bit slower. You're definitely more of a natural than me, but hopefully should be a lot of fun hitting the slopes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the jawline is coming in. It's nice to, I mean, viewers of the pod, you would have seen me in episode 1 looking nice and puffy, and now 5 episodes in, I'm starting to lean out a little bit. So give it a few weeks, and the skull face will be strong. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting on the slopes and seeing what we can do. Obviously, I took very naturally to indoor skiing, but indoor and outdoor is going to be a completely different ball game. So obviously, get some lessons while we're out there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm sure you'll be mewing down the slopes with that jawline. So yeah, be very very jealous. So let's move on then to how you can break the gym law. So yeah, this is going to be a bit of a fun part, as we said. So we just want to kind of go through some of the experiences we've had. We've obviously both been in the gym like yeah, nearly a decade each, and had quite a few encounters, I would say, in terms of what is appropriate in the gym and what isn't appropriate in the gym. Charlie, I think you've got a bit of a corker to start us off with. So do you want to go through your one?
Yeah, absolutely. So this one was literally yesterday, I believe. So very fresh in the memory. There I was in the gym, post cardio session, just on the treadmill getting some steps in, and I see out the corner of my eye some old man and his trotters on the treadmill just walking away, and it put the fear through me. I looked around, he had no shoes in sight. Now, I personally have walked around the gym in socks when I'm doing a leg session, for example, and I don't have my lifting shoes. I want a flat foot, I want some stability, but being barefoot in the gym or anywhere in the gym for that matter, on the treadmill, whether that's walking around the gym, it's just not nice. No one wants to see your stinky feet wandering around. They're sweaty, they're smelly, probably don't have the most attractive toes anyway. I mean, if you've got a foot fetish, then by all means, crack on. But yeah, it's just not something that people want to see. Put your socks on, put your shoes on, safety first, and keep your smelly trotters to yourself. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's somewhere on the internet in some sort of dark, secluded corner where that actually is what they're into. That they actually would pay for that sort of content. So clearly not what you're into, but someone's dream fetish
Absolutely.
just happened. They're getting someone walking next to them in there with their trotters out. Absolutely horrendous. I can't even believe that. Yeah, you sneakily took a video of it and yeah,
Despicable.
sent it across to me. So yeah, I just can't believe it. And yeah, I've trained barefoot, but not barefoot. Sorry, and never trained barefoot. Clearly, however, I have trained in socks before, for sure, especially around sort of like leg sessions. So it is something that I think is fine to train in socks. I don't even mind
Yeah.
training in like sliders or something like that,
Yeah.
especially if it's a pretty chill session. But training like barefoot on equipment that isn't yours, it's just a bit strange. I think
Yeah.
it's just a bit odd, and it's just not the sort of thing that I think is at all appropriate for the gym.
Not in the slightest. I definitely wouldn't recommend it. I mean, I have spent a few sessions training in Crocs, so I feel like that's similar to the sliders, but barefoot is a different game, and I'm not on board. No one wants to see that, and just keep them to yourself.
Yeah, I think another thing that I'm not on board with is just when you have crowds of people around bench presses, and I'm sure we may have covered it before on the podcast, but it is something that is a bit of a bugbear for mine. I'm sure it is for yourself as well, Charlie. Is there's lots of kids when they're like, I say kids because they're like probably like 16 to 20 maybe. I'd still count 20 as a kid, to be honest. I'm showing my age there a little bit. And they're all crowded around the bench. They've got the one guy in there who's just a bit of a genetic freak, or like slightly above the others, and he's slapping on 225, and he's taking it like 1 inch down towards his chest, and he's like, ugh! And then he like gets like some sort of horrendous form rep, and then they're all like clapping and cheering, and like there is a part of it, like, just to play devil's advocate, that's a really beautiful moment. They've got all their mates there, they've just hit 225 for the first time, and it's absolutely fantastic. And I don't mind that. It's just when they do it like every single week in, week out, there's a lot of those that sort of group of people there, and like it's great that they're starting themselves in the gym journey. We were all there somewhere at some point, and that was like the social hub of the world is the bench press, and fair play to them. They're having a good time there. However, it is something that they just need to be probably a little bit more conscious of whenever people are around in the gym. So yeah, it has to be a little bit go in the pet peeve box for me.
Yeah, 100%. The renowned broccoli heads in the gym, and exactly as you said, we've all been there. We've all tested our 1 rep max. We've all had some friends around us hyping us up, but it becomes an issue when it's every single week and they're doing the same thing day in, day out. It just becomes a bit pointless, and it's quite irritating for other gym goers because there's 5, 6, 7 of them crowding around one piece of equipment. One of them's about to crush themselves with a bench press. The others don't know how to spot that person, so it's just a recipe for disaster. And then the rest of them come in, they try to match it, and it's never going to end well, because you get this genetic freak that can lift it for 1 rep, but then the others get a bit too big for their boots, and then they just literally drop the weight on their chest, and before you know it, you've got like 6 people trying to lift it off, and it's just never going to end well. So definitely stay in your lane in terms of training level. Test your 1 rep max once if you want. That's what it's for. It gives you an idea of where you're currently at, but you don't need to be doing it week in, week out.
For sure, for sure. And I'll let you take the next one with what you don't need to be doing week in, week out either.
Yeah, so old people with their saggy genitalias hanging around longer than needed. I don't know how it is in the female changing rooms, but male changing rooms, the men have a tendency to just have their genitals, for want of a better word, just dangling freely, whether that's sat on a bench and they're just hanging out, or they just whip their towel off and stroll around for the fun of it. Not to say that I'm looking, but when it's in your eye line and they're just stood directly in front of you, it is hard to not look, and it's just unnecessary. And they're literally hanging down to their knees. Now, obviously, if you're female and you get your chest out, then they might also be saggy, but it is just not necessary. And yeah, obviously we've all got different comfort levels in the changing room, but I think that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I think I've come from a background of like playing rugby and like showering with people, and I'm completely happy to be fully naked around people, and I've got no issue with that whatsoever, and I'm all for people having great body image and being that confident, just to be absolutely clear. And I'm sure like same with the elderly females, things like that as well, or anyone in the gym. It doesn't matter as long as you're of an appropriate age, of course. I don't want to go down that route, but yeah, I've got no issue with it whatsoever. However, where it comes in is where there is an excessive amount of it. So, for example, I can think back to when I trained at a council gym, which is, sort of like it's not like as serious, I guess, as the gym that we currently train at now. And there was gentlemen in there who were well beyond the state pension age, and they would be sitting there on the bench or standing around with their towel in their hand, and they just want to talk to you. And I appreciate that they're probably retired, they've probably got a lot of time on their hands, they're probably looking for a bit of social connection, and I can deliver on that, but I just don't want them to be naked while I'm doing it. So I'm more than happy to talk to them about what they're doing in their gardening, what they've been up to recently, but like just put some clothes on, and then we can have the longest conversation. You've got all the time in the world there, because I just don't want to look at genitalias for more than 5 to 10 minutes, especially depending on how old they are as well. So yeah, let's just park that to one side, please, and move on from that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've spent a fair amount of time in the shower together. Sounds a bit wrong, but obviously back in the rugby days, it was normal. And, you get in, you shower, you do your bits, and then you get out and, you get dressed. But wandering around the changing room with it all hanging out and just having conversations with people, it's just not necessary. So put it away, crack on with your day, and everyone's going to be happy.
Absolutely. And yeah, so fine. So then we've got the next one in here. We've got stealing all the dumbbells. So I've got a particular example of this when I was training at like a big box sort of the gym group is what the brand of the gym is that I used to train at. This was a big mistake in my career, I think, training there for a little while. But anyway, there was a particular person who would turn up in full football kit. I won't say what team they were because I don't want to, give the person away. However, they would be an absolute they would steal all the dumbbells, they would hoard them. So for example, when they were doing like a dumbbell chest press, they would grab the 8 kg dumbbells, then they would grab the 10 kg dumbbells, and they'd grab them all at once, just to be clear. So they would have the 8s, the 10s, the 12s, the 14s, the 16s, and the 18s. So they've got all these pairs of dumbbells. They basically got the whole dumbbell rack just surrounding them in a little circle around their bench, and they would then proceed to do the most ridiculous drop set I've ever seen. It's almost impressive, to be fair, the amount of volume they would have been achieving through this. But they did they did a set on the 18s, and then immediately dropped to the 16s, and immediately dropped to the 14s, then the 12s, then the 10s, and then the 8s. And all the while, I'm just there trying to do some lat raises, bicep curls, or whatever, and they've taken what I would probably consider the most used section of the dumbbell rack, just surrounded by themselves in the gym floor. So yeah, very, very frustrating, and definitely something you want to avoid if you don't want to break the gym law.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I have been guilty in the past and currently of supersetting with different pieces of equipment, which can be quite frustrating for other gym users. But I'm fully aware of it and I try to be finished as quickly as possible. But literally taking most of the used dumbbells in the gym is just unnecessary because for exercises like lateral raises or bicep curls or any tricep work, or even if you're just not particularly strong, that's the range of dumbbells you're going to be using for the majority of your early training career. So supersetting that many times, I'm all for drop sets and supersets and trisets, but how many dumbbells is that? Like 6, 7? That's is that I don't know how many 6 or 7 is in like octuplets. So we've got quadruple, and then anything beyond then, my brain's just gone. And we've got a little thumbs up there. So
It's a
yeah, it's
lot, bro.
just unnecessary. But I think, going into the next one, you've obviously got another example there, and it's more just stupidity here. So take it away.
Yeah, so this happened to me rather too recently. Actually, 2023 to be fair, so it hasn't happened in 2024. So maybe it's something that we threw back in that previous year. So I'm a keen RDLer. I think that's fair to say. I think it's something that I'm always very passionate about, and I just enjoy a nice heavy hip hinge. So there was one particular session where I worked up to an RDL of like 200 kg. So this was going to be like my PB, and I was going to go for like 6 to 8 reps, and 200 kg is a lot of weight on the bar. So I unracked it, and I stepped backwards for a couple of steps, and then there was one of the gym members of their team. They were basically hoovering all around the gym, and they were hoovered right behind my heels as I've got 200 kg in my hand. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm going to kill you or kill myself if anything goes wrong here. So I'm all for diligent employees and members of the team, cleaning the gym and looking after it. Thank God they do. I'm so grateful for that. However, please just recognise a bit of personal space, and when someone's got 200 kg in their hands, just back off for 5 seconds, let them hit their set. And I was only doing one like top set, and then you can come back in and hoover all you want. I mean, it was absolutely terrifying, to be honest.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a big advocate of personal space anywhere, but even in the gym, like I get annoyed if someone's on the treadmill next to me, let alone if they're hoovering behind me. So yeah, it's quite frustrating. Just I feel like we need, one of those rings, a hula hoop, for example, that extends outwards so you can have a solid 1 to 2 meter gap between you and the person next to you, because that's just unnecessary and that's a safety element. But also, if you were to drop that and they were then hoovering next to you, and it drops on their toe, who's at fault there? And yeah, it's just not ideal.
I mean, I'm all for hula hoops in the gym, so yeah, you can count me in when you get started on that one.
Maybe I'll invest in some and just start throwing them around. But yeah, on to the next one. Unsolicited advice. So obviously Jason and I are in the industry of giving advice to people, hence this podcast. But there seems to be a lot of issues in most gyms where people go around giving unsolicited advice to particularly young females that might look vulnerable or that they don't know what they're doing, particularly from older males, just whether they're offering advice just willy-nilly as a friend, or if they're trying to rizz them up and get a number. It's just not needed. And I think I've had it in the past where I've had to adapt an exercise for an injury, and I've had someone come over and give me advice based on what I'm currently doing, not knowing why I'm doing it or what I'm doing it for. And it's just not needed, because then for me, I was able to laugh it off. But if someone's relatively new to the gym, then they might take that personally, and it could, put them off going back to the gym.
Yeah, I definitely think on this, it can be someone can go at it with the best intentions but get the worst outcome. Like, there's a lot of people in the gym who are really extroverted, really friendly, and they just want to pass on some of their knowledge and they want to help someone. And that's great. And that's a really positive environment that the gym can have. I think there just needs to be like a line of when is the right time to give that sort of advice, and when is the time to try and avoid it. Like if someone's got their headphones in and they're like these massive chunky speakers on the side of their face, and like they're trying to really zone in on their exercise, and the form is like not perfect but it's not also that bad, then that's probably not the sort of person that you need to be pulling out to one side and saying, look, have you thought about doing it like this, here's a tutorial, etc. But if there's someone who like is on the verge of like really injuring themselves, maybe they've like loaded the bar, which I actually did the other day unbelievably. I went to unrack it and I had like 120, which is like three or four 20s on one side, and on the other side I had like two less, and I was like, oh shit. And then so like I could have done with some advice then, that would have been perfectly okay, and I would have been like, oh, I would actually really appreciate that. However, if I'm like in the middle of doing a set, and I'm just trying to get it done, and I've got my headphones in, I'm kind of zoned in, and it's not unsafe, then I'm okay with it. But if it is unsafe, then yeah, come over and give me as much advice as you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think safety is a big one. So if someone looks like they're going to hurt themselves, whether we're referring back to the 1 rep max broccoli heads, or if in your situation, if someone hasn't loaded the bar correctly, then it could be worthwhile advice. But if you're just going over to try and correct someone because it's an ego thing or you think you know better, then probably just keep it to yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing that has never been okay in the gym, and I've been going for over 11 years or so now, is bicep curling in the squat rack. It is written in the gym testament that you may never ever bicep curl in the squat rack. There's so many reasons for this. Like number one, you are just blocking equipment for people who actually need it, especially if you're in a gym that's only got like one or two squat racks. If you're in there bicep curling, then you're just being a pain in the ass and holding up everyone else's workout. And like two, it is just such an inefficient exercise to build big biceps and like big arms. Like you want big arms, okay, like here's the dumbbells, here's the cable stack, like let me introduce you to these two, because bicep curl and the squat rack is not going to give you big arms. It's not aligned to your elbows. It's not going to be comfortable for you. It can result in wrist pain as well. So there's so many more optimal exercises that you can choose where you can still train really, really intensely and build some big arms that are just not involved the squat rack whatsoever. So please, please, please don't bicep curl and squat rack.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of ego attached to that. And I think it's because you can typically lift more weights. But as Jason said, it's just not the best exercise for building biceps. The range of motion is so limited because the barbell is only going to stop when it gets to your pelvis area. I was just trying to think where my hands actually fall. But yeah, you can use dumbbells, you can use an easy bar, you can use cables with various attachments. You don't need to take up a whole squat rack and a whole barbell just to do bicep curls. Just stop it. Don't be a nonce.
100%. I think the next one we've got as well is one that I'll let you take away, Charlie. This is probably one that you've got a bit more experience with than me.
Yeah, there's quite a string of people, particularly in the gym that we go to, of just not smelling very nice. Now, I'm all for, everyone's in the gym, you get a bit of a sweat on, you're gonna smell at some point. I've even smelt myself sometimes. I'm like, I'm kicking up a bit of a stink here. If someone was to smell me right now, they would probably be pretty disgusted. But I'm aware of it, so I know that I'm going to go home and shower. But if I can smell you just from you being in the near vicinity, that's a problem. That's a sign that you either need to invest in some better deodorant, or have a shower, or wash your clothes, or I don't know, get some better perfume or aftershave or whatever, because no one needs that level of smell in their nose. Now, I know some people can't help it, but for the most part, it can be avoided. And yeah, if I think a lot of the people that I've known to smell have been told that they need to do something about it, but they just haven't, and it's quite offensive to the nostrils. No one likes that. So yeah, definitely get some deodorant.
Yeah, I think it's just like basic hygiene is probably just, a gym is a public place. You're in there working out anyway. There's going to be a lot of breathing. There's going to be a lot of sweating. We all understand that. Just have a little bit of self-respect and respect for others around you, and yeah, a small amount of personal hygiene, whether it's putting a bit more deodorant on, whether it's just being aware of your own body odor, then that is something that, you need to take into account. I've actually had the reverse experience this week. One of my sessions earlier on. So like my missus washed my clothes, Izzy, obviously you'll know, and she put like loads of like the Lenore Unstoppables in there. They were like lavender flavor, but I think she put like way too many in. So like I'm wearing this gym shirt and I've got a hoodie on over the top, and then I'm like smelling myself, and I'm like smelling like this really intense chemical sort of lavender smell up my nose. And obviously I'm working out, so I'm getting sweaty and stuff, and I'm like, I'm just gonna keep my hoodie on the whole session because I cannot let people know that I smell like this. So yeah, it didn't smell bad, but well, maybe not like BOE, but I definitely smelled like pretty intensely. And I was like, this is offending my nostrils. It's going to definitely offend some other people's nostrils. So definitely something you need to be aware of, whether you're smelling too intensely, with like fabric conditioner or something, or whether it's too intensely with like BO. You need to be aware of that.
Yeah, I think I definitely prefer that over BO, but I've been in that situation as well where it's just a very intense smell, and then when it's the mixture of the chemically smell with your sweat as well, it does become quite the concoction for the nostrils. So definitely try to avoid that, and try not to overuse the Lenore Unstoppable.
The thing you need to avoid is we need to stop interrupting other people's workouts. So again, this kind of links back to the point we said earlier when someone is coming over to behind you and they're hoovering behind you. But also, it's not just about personal space here. This is also about going over and just chatting to someone, and finding out about like how's their day, how's their week. And again, maybe this is a personal preference for me. Hands up, like I'm introverted. I'm the sort of person that trains in the gym with like headphones on, hat on, and I just kind of want to get in there, blast it out, and kind of crack on. I don't really see the gym as like a social thing for myself personally. Like everyone's in there, I respect that they're hustling, they're working hard. Like that's great. But for me, like I'm in there to grind and like try and achieve my goals and try and progress in my lifts, especially like when I'm training really hard to failure and trying to push and hit PBs every single workout. You know, I'm very friendly outside the gym, I assure you. But in the gym, I just kind of want to lock in and then make sure that I can get my session done. So yeah, I would just say that we need to just be careful of what others are doing in their workouts. Some people are there to socialize, and that's absolutely fine. But just have a little bit of an assessment of the person before you go charging in there and try and discuss or ask how their day's going.
Yeah, definitely. Even if you know the person, if they're mid-exercise, then probably leave them to it, and then you can just like give them a little nod or a little wave halfway through the session. You don't need to go and speak to them the second you see them. But then also, if someone is mid-exercise, I've had this quite a few times where you're using like one side of the cables, or you're using, I don't know, a pair of dumbbells, and you've got a pair of dumbbells next to you that you're not using. Anything like that, don't then interrupt someone mid-exercise to ask if they're using it, because if I see you lingering and then you're like, oh, are you using this? It's just irritating. And I've then lost count of how many reps I'm doing. And then also it's just put me off my entire set. So just wait 30 seconds for them to be done, and then interrupt them and ask them that they're using it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. It's just about, you got to read the situation, read the person, and then just, if you do really want to talk to them, just make sure that you kind of give them a little bit of a wave, see, and they're when they're resting, and then kind of have that conversation if you need to have it. But, pick up on the signs and see what they're actually doing. So don't just
Yeah.
force the conversation onto them.
Absolutely. And just that brings me on to the next point, having dumbbells lying around. So not re-racking your weights. This is quite an issue with dumbbells that are heavier than like 50 kilos, because it's quite hard to find a rack that stores them. But if you're leaving 10s, 20s, 30s just lingering around on the floor, not only is it a trip hazard, but then also no one knows where they're going to find them. So regularly I'm wandering up and down the dumbbell rack, because I can see one dumbbell at one end and another dumbbell at another end, and you've then got to go to multiple places to get the pair. I understand if there's limited space, but from a hazard perception perspective, it's just not very safe. Like, our gym has a rack where it's got like heavier dumbbells on the top rack, heavier dumbbells on the bottom rack, and then heavier dumbbells scattered on the floor. So you've then got to step over these 70 kilos, for example, to then grab the 40 kilos, and you've then got to reach them from a stretched position. And you're at risk of pulling your back out, and with someone with a bad back anyway, I don't want to be doing that. So just re-rack your weights, put them back where they should belong. Obviously, this is dependent on if the rack is labelled. If it's not, just use some common sense. The 5 kilos don't go next to the 35 kilos. Just put them back in a normal order.
Yeah, I actually had a fantastic experience that I saw in the gym probably about a month or so ago. I just saw a guy, he was working out. He normally works at the same time as me, never speak to him or anything like that. We're both just there doing our workouts. And I just look over and see what he's doing over at the dumbbell rack as I'm just sort of scouring the gym. And he actually basically went through the whole dumbbell rack and reset it all. So it was all in like numerical order from like lightest weight to heaviest weight and re-racked the whole thing. And I was like, my God, who is this guy? This guy's a complete hero. So whoever you are, random person who I see in the gym most days, you've absolutely smashed that. And like, you know, that's definitely some good karma you've got in the bank. Then I really, really appreciate that, because yeah, if people don't re-rack their dumbbells, it is just a massive pain in the ass. So I appreciate you taking time out of your workout and energy to actually spend the time doing that.
100%, and shout out to him, because guarantee 10 minutes later it would have been ruined by someone picking up a dumbbell and then use it. Someone else picks up another dumbbell and they just put it back in opposite places. And yeah, so
Yeah,
this then brings us
is
on.
very, very frustrating. Go on.
Brings us on to
Go on,
not
Shield.
sharing equipment. So I understand if the gym's busy, you might have to ask someone how many sets have they got left. They might offer to share the equipment with you, but it's not always essential. So me personally, I do offer, but I don't like sharing equipment. So if it is busy, it's nice to share with someone. It lets them get their session done quicker. And if you don't mind sharing equipment, it's absolutely fine. But for me, I just feel like it makes me rush through my session. I had an experience the other day where I wanted to use a leg press. So I asked the guys how many sets have they got left. They then said, oh, you can jump in with us. Luckily, they were using a similar amount of weight. But then when I'd done my set and they then did theirs, I was still resting for a little bit, but I felt like they wanted me to do my next set so they could then crack on. And I'm just like, no, I need more rest. Like, I'm still puffing out my ass here. So yeah, that's where it does become irritating. But obviously the gym is a shared environment, and if someone's happy to jump in and share equipment, then by all means allow them to do so.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I can be a bit of a gym hogger with equipment. To be fair, like I'll hold my hands up, and I'm absolutely guilty as charged. It is something that when someone asks me how many sets I've got left, I'll normally say like 2 or 3. Because normally what I do have left, to be fair, but I don't necessarily always offer them to come in and jump on straight away. It depends what I'm doing. To be fair, like if I'm on a leg press, I'm not going to be taking off loads of plates or putting more plates on for them, and that's just a bit of a pain in the ass. Like if they can politely wait for 2 sets, then I am eternally grateful for them, and then I will let them have the whole thing, and I won't interrupt them, and they can have their own, their own time on that machine and get their own session in. So yeah, I'm a bit guilty of this one as well. So no one's perfect, but definitely want to stay on the right side of the law in the gym. So just something to bear in mind. Another real big bugbear that I've seen personally in the gym is when people stand in front of the dumbbell rack and they're like either doing curls or they're doing exercises like directly off the rack. So, for example, in the gym a little while ago, I saw someone doing a 60 kilo dumbbell row, which sounds really impressive off the dumbbell rack. However, the form that they were doing with the dumbbell row was absolutely horrendous. But that's not the main bugbear. Like, that's up to them what they do. But where it impeded me and where it was a bit frustrating is because they were doing it straight off the dumbbell rack. I was really struggling to like rack or select weights or to re-rack my dumbbells because they were just literally stood there the whole time. All they were doing like these very unusual form. It was just a bit awkward because I've got like 35s in my hand and I'm like trying to like shuffle behind this guy and I'm like, oh, sorry, mate. Can I just squeeze these down next to you? And obviously he's got his headphones and I've got my headphones in. I'm caffeinated. I've probably taken some pre-workout. I'm a bit overstimulated. There's a lot of music going on in my head and I'm like, just let me put these bloody dumbbells down. So yeah, that is something that was quite frustrating the other day. And I think it is something, especially if someone's blocking access to the dumbbell rack. Like those are key resources in order to make us achieve our gains. So it's something that definitely needs to be monitored.
Yeah, 100%. It infuriates me. Like, whether you're carrying a set of 35, 40 kilo dumbbells back to the rack, or even if you're just trying to grab a smaller pair of dumbbells to do a bicep curl or a lateral raise, for example. It's just unnecessary because chances are the amount of space in front of the dumbbell rack is limited anyway. So if someone's then stood there, like I always see it, people pick up a pair of dumbbells, then they spin round and just look directly in the mirror rather than taking them to a separate part of the dumbbell area to then do the exercise. They're just in front of the dumbbell rack, and it's just unnecessary because, like you said, it stops people putting dumbbells back, it stops people getting dumbbells that they want, and if you're also using it to lean on, it is just unnecessary. It's not needed, and yeah, especially if it's poor form as well. So don't stand in front of the dumbbell rack. It's very, very noncy behaviour.
Yeah, we're going to cover some topics which aren't noncy behaviors. So we've covered some really obvious topics there, which is about how you can break the law with the gym. But actually, these are the topics which some people may consider noncy behavior or behavior that could break the law in the gym. However, we personally think is absolutely fine. So the first one we've got in here is like grunting or exhaling like reasonably loud or reasonably intensely like that. I'm absolutely okay with that. I am, in fact, I'd almost encourage it. I don't necessarily want the gym to be a church. I'm sure there's some sort of Arnold Schwarzenegger quote or something where it's like the gym is a church, you should be quiet or something like. It might not be him. I've probably butchered it, but there's definitely something out there on the internet in my 11 years of consuming fitness content that I can remember. But yeah, I've got no problem with people grunting or people like exhaling or anything like that. Most of the time, I've got my headphones in anyway, so I can't hear them. But what I would say is that there is a line, and if they're like shouting really loudly on every single rep, and it's not if it's a 1 rep max and they want to shout something huge. Good story actually. Just remembered this. So when I was at university, there was a guy who deadlifted. I think he was in like the powerlifting team. And he deadlifted. I think it was like 260, 270, and he like pulled it. And I was in the gym at the time, and it was a massive lift. He obviously like dropped. He had good form, so we 1RM'd it. Went down and then shouted, "I am the king," and it was like it was hilarious and like a bit cringy, but I was like, fair play, like this guy's just deadlifted like a reasonable amount of weight. He's probably hit like a lifetime PR there, and if he wants to shout "I am the king," then I'm all here for that. Like, allow him to express himself. If that's the way what he wants to say, then that's fine. But yeah, what I would say is that's acceptable. But if someone's like hitting like 10 reps on like at a bench press or something like that, and they're like screaming or grunting really loudly on every single rep, so that I can hear them through my headphones when I'm like 10 meters away, that is too much, and that isn't reasonable.
Yeah, 100%. If you're lifting a reasonable amount of weight and that deadlift does seem very reasonable, then by all means grunt and shout as much as you want to get you through that. But if you're bicep curling 10 kilos, for example, or you're doing a 10 rep set, you don't need to be shouting from the first rep. If you get to the last few and you're pushing failure, you're going to be grunting, you're going to be exhaling forcefully, but that is just a sign of intensity. But it is a bit unnecessary if you're not doing that. But either way, it's not generally annoying. It's just if it's warranted, then by all means do so. It's a sign that you're pushing yourself. And yeah, filming
sure.
in the gym. So we are both coaches, so we encourage clients to do this because not only can we analyze their form, but it's a good way for them to track their progress and analyze their own form. But also, like from a content perspective, some people now document their process and share it online, whether that's them in the gym filming their exercises, or whether that's from a content perspective, filming something to show people how it's done. It is not really an issue. Obviously, there is a respect barrier that comes in. If someone's in the background and they don't want to be filmed because they're not generally comfortable in the gym, then you might want to ask for consent to film. And I feel like you probably should get consent. Otherwise, if someone's in the background, they see themselves online, they might rat you out to the gym owner and you probably could get banned from filming, but it's highly unlikely. But yeah, I think filming in the gym is absolutely fine. There are some people that do have issues with it. It's typically the older generation, but I think that's just more of a acceptance thing because it's changing with the times and they're not used to it. But from our perspective, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I completely agree with that last point there. I definitely think it's like a generational thing. I think like our generation is kind of like okay with it. I think the generation probably below us who are like 18, 19 now, I think that it's like almost completely normal to them. They've obviously grown up with smartphones and having cameras. It's probably like the generation who are like above us and maybe the one above them who probably have the biggest issue with it. But I honestly think it's just a great way to analyze your own form, track your progress, share it online, send it to friends, build a bit of a social community or like a tribe. And I think it's just the way the world's going going at the minute. I think everyone's filming themselves. It's whether it's narcissism or anything like that, whether that's got anything to do with it, or it's just people wanting to share their progress and send that to friends. I think that's great, and I think it is something that I encourage. I just say you just need to be respectful in terms of what times of day you film in. When I try to film, I try and film when it's really really quiet, so I'll typically film like around between 8 a.m. to maybe 9-10 a.m., which is when most people have sort of gone to work, and then the gym's absolutely dead. Like there's hardly anyone in there. I'll always be really specific about when I try and set my camera angles so that there's no one in there. I'm always really conscious of it. So and I've fortunately, touch wood, I haven't had any issues with it, anything so far. So yeah, I plan on intending to continue to film in the gym, and I don't mean every single session, every single set for the whole year. I just you pick some sessions that you want to film. Maybe you're trying out new exercises, and maybe you want to check your form on them. Maybe you just want to put some different sort of content on social media. I'm all for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I would
And
say that I'm go on.
oh, sorry, I was just going to say, as long as you're not causing a hazard, like I know some people have their tripods in the way, or they take up a piece of equipment to hold their camera to then film themselves on another piece of equipment. That refers back to the hogging equipment point that we made. But as long as you're not doing that kind of thing and it is for your own benefit, you're not interrupting anyone else, then it's absolutely fine.
Yeah, completely agree. I also really think that we just need to have a quick discussion about resting between sets slash like people being on their phones. Like I'm okay with that. I mean, it's probably one of the ones that most people on the online aren't okay with. So, for example, when I say I'm okay with it, I don't mean someone's going to be on their phone for like 10 minutes and they're on Snapchat or something like that. But like if they're resting 1 to 3 to 4 minutes or even 5 minutes if it's like a hard RDL set or something like that, and they want to be on their phone, or maybe they're even better, they're on their phone and they're watching the video that they've just recorded and they're looking at the technique that they've just had, or maybe they're doing something along that that's actually going to improve their gym performance. Or personally, I use my phone quite a lot because I record a lot of my exercises on OneFit, which is just like an app where you can track your workouts on, so therefore I can measure my progress. So I really like having my phone on me at the time. So there is a line there, but I would say something that is definitely okay in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I first started out, oftentimes I didn't know the exercise I was doing, or I wanted clarity on the technique. So I would pull up a YouTube video and just sit there and watch it between sets. But even if you are on your phone sending a message, or heaven forbid, scrolling social media, that's absolutely fine, because what else are you going to do in a rest period? Chances are, if I'm not on my phone, I'll just be looking around the gym, looking at someone, and that might make them uncomfortable. I'm not looking at them for any reason. I'm not judging them, but I'd much rather be on my phone tracking my lifts, watching a video that I've just filmed, or making sure I've got the technique right. And then 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, however long I need to take, that's ultimately the amount of time I need on that piece of equipment. So it refers back to a previous point as well. Like, people can occupy one piece of equipment, and then as long as you don't mind them sharing, then that's absolutely fine. If you don't want to share, then maybe just be a bit more conscious of other people, but you're entitled to use a piece of equipment for a certain amount of time if you need it.
Excellent. Yeah, I hope that clears up to all the listeners some of the do's and don'ts of the gym, and how to stay on the right side of the law and not end up being a gym nonce. Look, this episode's obviously been just a bit of fun. We're not taking it too seriously, so don't necessarily take the advice too seriously either. We just wanted to put out something a little bit different, provide a bit more entertainment, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. Don't forget to subscribe, share it with your mum, your nan, your dad, all your siblings, all your friends, and get Beyond Reps out there. But yeah, how not to be a gym nonce. Don't break the law. Just follow the rules.
Peace.